Welcome once again to What the Facts, our extra credit lesson on all the crazy topics and events covered on WTF 101. My name's Jake Young, and this time around, we're covering duels. And to help us demand satisfaction, we've enlisted the help of a university professor and expert on the act of dueling, Stephen Hughes. Stephen.
Yeah, pleasure.
So tell me about yourself. You kind of dwell in the worlds of like honor killings and duels and just the history of how masculinity has been kind of perceived across time. What drew you to that subject?
Well, I'm an Italian historian. I do Italian social history. But working on a book about the Italian police, I ran across a duel from about 1823 or so. So I got a Fulbright grant to go to Italy in 92, 93 and study dueling.
This is kind of what blew my mind when we went over the dueling episode, is just how, in terms of the span of history, we only got rid of the practice relatively recently in the grand scheme of things. Like, how late into the game were people still, trying to murder each other legally?
The modern point of honor duel, and I make that point because there's also judicial duels in the Middle Ages where, it was the deciding factor in a law case. But the modern point of honor duel began in late 15th and early 16th century Italy. By the mid 17th century, late 17th century, nobody was dueling, or very few people. And then it came back after Napoleonic invasions, after the French Revolution and the Napoleonic invasions in Italy. It was very much in vogue in France and Germany up until the First World War. And then the First World War kind of blew it away.
So what about the First War? What made it distasteful at that point?
Violence had become so mechanized and industrialized. And, when you're starting, playing with machine guns, the idea of pulling out a pistol or a rapier just seemed completely antiquated and pretty stupid.
So in World War I, violence just became so widespread and gruesome that it no longer seemed like a fun activity anymore?
That's exactly right. Yeah. And again, massive warfare had another impact, and that was the U.S., the United States. Dueling was already starting to wane, sort of, they think, in the 50s. But after the Civil War, it's pretty much gone.
You're talking 1850s, not like greasers with switchblades at the sock hop. Okay, good.
Yeah, so the Civil War there weren't too many people left around in some ways to defend Southern honor.
In the episode, we cover the duel of the French nobleman was Barbier Dufay that happened in the back of a moving carriage with each contestant having one arm tied behind their back, and they had daggers to just stab themselves as much as they could. In your studies, have you come across like more exceptional duels like that where people went beyond just flintlocks and rapiers?
Yes. Those are called exceptional duels. They're written up in the dueling codes, and the dueling codes don't like them. They think that they're illegal, and that has actual consequences. Although that gets fuzzy and a little hard to explain, but it's true. And they found them barbarous, and they felt that no true gentleman would actually engage in such a thing. But you can find them with the weirdest one is a report I had of 1886 in the United States. Two engineers had a duel supposedly with dynamite.
What?
Immediate caveat. I have found no other backup on that except the fact it's in this book, right? You see that?
Oh, that is, come on, the worn leather cover, that's got to be real.
It has it right here about the duel, and that's where it talks about the dynamite duel. But you can find duels with bullwhips.
Indiana Jones fight.
Yeah. Australia, an Australian newspaper reported that there were two carters who, teamsters, literally teamsters, with teams, who got into a long-standing kind of rubbing each other the wrong way, and eventually decided to settle it with bullwhips.
So many famous people had to engage in duels. Andrew Jackson, as they talk about in the episode, famously waited for his opponent to shoot him first. And, do these men of honor, like this actually helps their reputation. This gives them greater status. It's not just like, oh, there's that guy who killed 5 of my friends, I hate him. Like how did duel function in proper society?
I think the duel in its infancy in the late 15th, early 16th century through the 16th century even was a civilizing mechanism. It helped cut down on vendetta, family feuds that could last generations. And so literally these issues of honor, which might blow into real nasty blood feuds that could last generation after generation. In the 16th century, those began to get turned into one-on-one combat, individualized. So you kind of bring it all down to the point of a sword at one point temporally, geographically, and say, okay, this is it, and now it's done. It also kept people polite to each other, right? You didn't want to, just call somebody a puppy, which was a real insult, a poltroon, or a liar, and a liar was the worst.
Are we allowed to say the P word on stream? Is this okay? Do we have to censor this? Just double checking. All right. I'm sorry. Just, we have standards. Just need to make sure we were clear. On the episode, we definitely almost too meticulously covered the duel between Pauline Metternich and the Countess Kleinmanzig. Was there a continuing tradition of the so-called emancipated duels for women after that, or was it kind of a one-off thing?
It was not common at all for women to duel, virtually unknown. I've investigated most women's duels, trying to find a primary source to back them up. And a lot of the time they happen in, Tierra del Fuego, some odd place in Mexico where probably they didn't happen. A lot of the photographs of women's duels tended to be staged. They were not real. And I have to say, even the one you brought up, there's a Dutch historian who suggested that it pretty successfully that it didn't happen at all.
Ooh, this is the first one, guys. Guys, this is the first one we got where our expert actually was like, "No, that didn't happen."
Yeah, I don't think it happened.
So much ye old clickbait in this story.
So there may be a couple of women's duels out there, but they were certainly frowned upon if they existed by the men. Women were not supposed to duel.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for taking the time to kind of share your knowledge with us. If people want to follow your work or support any of your projects, where can they find you?
Well, it's my pleasure to be here, and they can find my book, Politics of the Sword. But now I'm also working on honor killing, which is about laws in Italy which allowed you to kill your husband or wife if you caught them in flagrante with another person. And so that'll be coming out in an article actually within a couple of months, I think.
Thank you so much, Stephen.
It was fun. Take care. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you so much for joining us on that intellectual journey. And be sure to check us out next time. And I promise we will not call you a poltroon for doing so, right? We can't. Can I say poltroon? Are you going to bleep this? Can I call someone a ragamuffin? Can I call people Fauntleroy?